Barrie Show. If you've been following the series, you know it's about inspirational people in and out of the community. Today we have none other than the great British acting legend, Wil Johnson. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Nice of you to take time out of your busy schedule
to
come and talk with us.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Very good. Yeah.
Busy?
Yes, I am kind of busy at the moment. Yeah, which is good.
So we had to snatch a moment to get him here. You know what I mean? So you're originally from where?
Originally from Tottenham, North London border.
Are you still in that area now?
I spend a lot of time in that area because that's where my dad lives.
Right.
So whenever I'm working in London, I always stay at my dad's, but I actually now live in Kent.
All right.
I live in a little town called Faversham.
I know Faversham.
Yeah, I live there.
Yeah, sometimes you need to get out of the madness of London.
Yeah, you need a missus and a dog.
What dog have you got?
He's a cross between a Pomeranian and a Bichon.
It's one of those fluff balls.
Yeah.
Powder puff.
Very, very bouncy, full of energy. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a dog lover myself, so I know what it is. I like big dogs. So.
Okay.
So how did acting start for you?
Wow. Acting found me. I didn't actually find acting, actually.
Right.
Because when I was at secondary school, our first 3 years, drama was a compulsory subject. And funnily enough, it was the subject that I hated the most.
That's interesting.
I just couldn't see the relevance of it. You know, being a typical North London kid, I just wanted to be something like an engineer or a carpenter, you know, sort of following my dad's footsteps. Do something kind of, you know...
Manual with the hands.
With the hands, kind of physical. And at that time, drama and the arts, for me, was just about rock and roll and loose women and loose men, and it sort of didn't have any
It didn't resonate with you.
No, it did not resonate at all. And how I got into acting was... as I said, my first 3 years, it was a compulsory subject. And my teacher always said, you know, you've got a real talent for acting, you know. And I was like, oh, I forget this acting nonsense. I'm just not interested in it. And in my last year at school, they were doing this play and the lead actor dropped out. And by then, I'd not chosen drama as an option.
Right.
So that wasn't, you know, so I wasn't actually studying it anymore. And then my teacher came up to me and said, look, our lead actor's dropped out. And I'd like you to play the lead part in this play. How do you feel about doing it? And I went, no, I don't want to do that. And then I found out that there was a particular girl who I quite liked.
Okay.
Who
and
was
you
the
two were in the lead. Okay.
And I thought, this is my opportunity to ask her out. Okay. You know, like doing the play. So then I went back to him and I said, all right, okay. I said, I'll do the play. And I remember we had about like 3 or 4 weeks rehearsals, you know, like after school rehearsals, and all the time. The only thing I was thinking about during those rehearsals
was the girl.
I'm like, okay, when am I going to pick my moment to actually, you know, like ask her out? Anyway, it just kept going. Then we got to the first performance. And our first performance was in front of the school because we had to do 2, like one in the afternoon and then one in the evening. And it wasn't until that moment before the curtain went up. And I remember thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. And this like rush of nerves and fear kicked in. And my heart started beating, my mouth went dry. I was literally shaking. And I was literally about to go off stage to think, I can't do this.
Oh, really?
And then the curtain came up.
And you were like...
And I was literally caught like, well, you have to do it now. And I remember just kind of bungling through this first performance. Right. Literally, I bungled through it.
Right.
And then when it finished, I went up to my best mate and I said to him, so how was that? And he said, you weren't too bad, you know. I mean, you was a little bit nervous, but you know, but if you just kind of like relax a little bit. And I remember sort of, after that conversation, I went, I want to do this again, but I want to do it better.
Better, right.
Because I just found something in it that I'd never, you know, found before doing drama. you know, and so then we had the evening performance for our parents, and I thought, right, I really want to get this one right. And so I went back and I did it, and it was a bit better. I was still nervous because I hadn't really taken it seriously.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, and then when it finished, I spoke to my drama teacher. I said, so how do I get into this acting thing? And he said, well, there are a few courses around. And so he put me in touch with the National Youth Theatre. He said they got a summer scheme coming up. And also there was a new drama group that was starting in Tottenham called the Haringey Youth Theatre. So he said, look, they're having auditions in about the next 2-3 weeks. So, and this is what you need to do. You need to prepare a contemporary piece and a Shakespeare piece. So I'm like, what is that?
So what age was this?
I was 16.
Right.
I was 16. So, and I remember my first Shakespeare piece that I put together was a speech from Macbeth.
Okay.
The speech where he's looking at the invisible dagger.
Right.
It's just a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand. Come, let me clutch thee. So, and I've always remembered that. And the other piece was from a play by Tennessee Williams called The Glass Menagerie. I can't remember the piece, but and I kind of, again, I bungled through. I do a lot of bungling.
Well, you did in the early days. You did in the early days, not so much now.
And so I kind of bungled through that and got in. And the first production that they did was Macbeth. And they offered me the role. Yeah.
Good choice for you to prepare.
Yeah, so at 16, nearly 17, there I was playing Macbeth, as a young kid,
Right.
Having never done Shakespeare before. I'd studied it at school, but I'd never performed it. And that kind of, got me sort of going.
Gave you the momentum to keep going.
Then after that, I then joined the National Youth Theatre. I was with them for 3 summers, which was a great introduction into this is kind of what it's going to be like if you want to be a professional actor.
If you're serious.
Because all the teachers were professional actors.
All right.
So you were learning firsthand. From people who were in the industry. So it was a hard graft because it was like 6 weeks of, we had to rehearse 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday. And we rehearsed from 9 in the morning till 10 at night. And so you can imagine at 16, 17 going, 9 in the morning, and if you were late, you weren't allowed to participate. So you had to be on time. That was the rule.
Discipline.
Yeah. If you were 5 minutes late, you weren't allowed in the class. You had to go home. And if you were late a second time, they would kick you out. So you had to be on point. So that sort of taught us the whole thing about getting to work on time.
Discipline.
The discipline.
Commitment.
Yeah, exactly, all of that. So, and then after the first summer with them, I then went to college and did my O-levels and my A-levels. And that's when I really started to get into drama properly.
Right.
I did drama A-level at Kingsway Princeton College. And I remember in my last year, everybody was applying for drama school and all that. And then my teacher said to me, so which drama schools are you going to apply for? And I said, none. And she said, why not? I said, I don't need to go to drama school. She said, yeah, but you need to learn that. I said, listen, I will learn as I go along. Because I've always been that kind of person. I'm like very much hands-on.
Show me and I'll copy it and learn it and then put my own style in there.
That's my, that was always my thing. And I said, look, I'd rather spend 3 years in the industry learning and getting paid rather than 3 years in an institution. And then by then I had enough of institutions, like A-levels and O-levels. I thought, I can't be in another institution.
Yeah.
I've got to get out because I thought this is not for me. I want the practical application of actually doing it as opposed to, sitting down there and
theoretical
saying, this is how you need to be in order to be an actor. You have to speak well and you have to do this, you have to do that. Because, a lot of people were going to drama school at that time, especially people from outside of London.
Right.
And they were told, lose that Birmingham accent, lose that Mancunian accent, lose that Leeds accent, use that Newcastle. Yeah, lose it all. You need to have an RP, which is received pronunciation, So basically you sort of speak like this and you speak very well all the time.
Yeah.
That's what you needed to be in those days. It's different now. Do you know what I mean? But then there was a real stigma attached to
If you had an accent that was quite pronounced. Yeah.
And if you're a young black teenager, you were definitely stigmatized, like street hood, street rap.
Right.
And in order for you to lose that, then you need to become this. And I thought, I don't need to become anything. I am me. Whatever is put in front of me, I will play. There is a guy who's posh or somebody who's working class or somebody from South Africa. It doesn't really matter where.
But that's what an actor is. You assume the role.
Yeah, that's it.
Whereas some actors, I have to say, they actually just play themselves.
Yeah.
Whatever they're in, they just are the same.
Yeah.
They do everything
It's an extension of who they are because they have a very, very limited range. And the only range that they know is this range.
Yeah.
And you have certain actors who have, they've created a whole career from playing an extension of one character.
Yeah.
And they've done very well. It's like, I remember reading an interview, the actor who passed away a few years ago, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Okay.
I think his name was.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, him. Great actor.
Yeah.
Wicked actor. And they said to him in this interview, they said, who do you admire the most as an actor? And he said, Harrison Ford. And they said, why Harrison Ford? And he said, because I find it incredible that he has been his whole career playing one character. And I find that remarkable because I couldn't do it. I couldn't just play one character throughout every single role. It's the same thing, just in a different costume, in a different setting, but the same character. He's like, that and he actually meant it. He said, I really do admire that because I couldn't do that. I have to create different characters and be different people in different situations.
Yeah.
And that's what
make it believable. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because we can all try to be different characters in different settings, but it's not believable. They just still see you as that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I should say this, but I find Michael Caine like that. It's like the one character in everything.
Yeah, it's just an extension.
Tone of voice, the attitude, the demeanor, everything is just the same.
Yeah.
So it's always been acting for you?
Always been acting, always.
There was no first job from school, leaving school, always been acting?
Well, actually, before I got into acting, I did a year on the building site.
Okay.
Because since I was 11, I started working with my dad on the weekends. And that sort of came about only because there was one day I had the nerve to ask my dad if I can have a pair of Farah slacks.
Farahs?
Do you remember the Farah?
Of course. And the Gabici, the same
Gabici
color.
and all
that.
Yeah. And I said to my dad, I said, Daddy, can I have a pair of Farah slacks? And he just looked at me and he said, you want Farah slacks? Go work for it. That was it. I'm like, okay, I'll come and work with you then.
But don't you just love your parents can bring you down to earth and just level it?
Yeah, completely.
It's like, by all means, you can have the Farahs, but come and work for them.
Come and work for it.
Because, Farahs don't drop out the sky.
Exactly. And so I started working with my dad, Saturdays and Sundays on the weekend just to, and that's how I got my pocket money. Do you know what I mean? And so, by the time I was like 15, 16, I was wearing the Cecil G. Absolutely. I had the snakeskin shoes.
From Davis on the road,
I had the Chaparitas. I had the Sovereign.
See, this is real down to earth, boy. Love it. Chaparita.
I had the Chaparita.
And the Belcher. And the Sovereign. We could go on.
Yeah, brilliant. So that was... so that was my background, you know what I mean? And at the same time as doing that,
when you were then going to be Shakespeare.
Yeah, and then I'd do me Shakespeare. But even before the acting, me and my brother, we started a sound system.
Okay.
In Tottenham, because as a young kid growing up, sound system, it was a rite of passage.
Rite of passage.
That's what it was, you know what I mean? So us and a few
of them. What was the sound system name?
We were called Raiders International.
Okay.
And we did a lot of house parties,
Blues
weddings,
and
Christmas. We did a few blueses, you know, a few little sound clash. You know, man from South London say, yeah, we want to test, you know, and you're like, yeah, bring your things, you know.
Now we have to make this clear. South London sounds are the best. We have to make this clear. Yeah,
that's what they say. But anyway,
okay, let's name them. Mate. Saxon, Coxon, Shaka. Okay, moving on.
Okay. Okay, you got that one there. Okay, Saxon Studio. All right. You know what I mean? A tip of iron in my name. All right, cool.
Moving on. How was your school life?
My school. I tell you what, school for me was some of the best times. I was a good student at school. I was a good student. I never bunked off once from school. The only time I was off school was when I was sick. I was never late for school. I did all my homework. I was very fortunate that we were at a time where the thing for us was about who could be the best student.
Wow.
Who could get the top grades? Who had the best handwriting? Who had the best presentation of your homework? That's what it was all about. We was all in competition with each other. So it wasn't about, you know, I'm too cool for school. No. If you hadn't had your schoolwork down, then you were off.
Yeah.
Then you weren't cool.
Yeah.
But if you could do your homework, do your schoolwork, be the best student, you know, be the best dress, even going to school, man had to be styling it out, had to have the best uniform, had to have the best presentation, you know what I mean? So it was like, for us, you know, like everything we did was about pride. It was about pride.
I totally understand. I totally get that.
You know?
Totally get that.
So for me, school was a great time. I mean, yeah, you know, it had its ups and downs, obviously.
Like everything in life.
Like everything, you know, and, you know, there were certain...
But a lot of people, you know, you hear them saying, well, you know, they didn't really enjoy school, they didn't connect, they didn't have a good time.
I love school.
And I just think that's a pity because it's quite a precious time in your life.
Yeah.
And you would hope to enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, the only time for me school went a little bit skew-F was when I came to the end of the 5th year. So I decided I wanted to stay on, onto the 6th form. And before the summer holidays, we did this thing called an induction week where, you know, we didn't have to wear uniforms. And it was like, okay, this is kind of what life is going to be like as a 6th former.
Yeah.
When you come back in September.
A little looser, a little freer.
A little bit looser. You know, you can call the teachers by their first name. You don't have to wear uniform and all that. I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is all cool. And
but still a bit weird.
Yeah, a little bit kind of weird. But I thought, okay, this is all right. And then we had this English lesson that we had to do. And we had to write down all the things that we liked about the 6th form and what we expected from the 6th form. And I remember writing out this essay. And at the end of it, the teacher said to me, he said, Will, can you come in, please? I said, yeah, sure, what? He said, this is a very, very interesting, you know, piece that you've written, but I'm not sure about the ending. And I said, yeah, it says exactly what's there.
How I feel.
Yeah. And he's like, yes, but I don't quite agree with it. And I said, it's very simple. Cut out the racism towards the black children in this school. Me at 16.
You went in.
Young Malcolm. Young Malcolm. You know, I mean, I was in.
You went in.
Yeah, I was in. And he said to me, oh, there's no racism in this school. And I said, are you having a laugh? Of course there's racism. I said, there's racism everywhere. And there was racism in this school. A week later, my parents got this letter saying, dear Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, we don't feel under as though, because my full name is Wilbert, that Wilbert will be suitable for the 6th form. Kicked me out, mate.
Really?
Yeah, got kicked out.
In spite of the fact that you were such a good, articulate student.
Yeah.
Never gave trouble.
Nope. They said, we don't think you'll be suitable for the 6th form.
Yeah, you might stir things up, you see. might make the people around you a bit more conscious of what's actually really going on. So.
And when my mum read it, she was like, well, just go to college, innit? I went to college and got 4 O-levels, so I'm not complaining. Do you know what I mean? So I did really well. I did extremely well, you know, and then went on to do my A-levels. But it was just so interesting, even at that time, you know, being sort of like politically and racially aware of certain things.
Not welcome.
You know, and being able to speak out about it, but then being squashed. Thinking, no.
Not welcome.
Yeah.
Because you'll cause too much upheaval and uproar if you start spreading that ideology around the fellow students.
Yeah. You know, so they were like, no, we can't have that. So they kicked me out. So, but then again, in a funny way, that was the best thing, because then, as I said, I went on to do my O-levels and got 4 O-levels. Whereas if I'd have stayed on in the 6th form, I don't know if I would have done that well.
Right.
But I think that going to college was a real spur, because it was like that real sense of independence. And that's when I really started to learn. I felt as though the last 5 years in school, I hadn't really learned anything. It's only when I went to college, I thought, oh my God, because it's like, you know, they were encouraging, you know, free thinking.
Yeah.
Think for yourself.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think? As opposed to being at school saying, this is what we think, you should be thinking. You know, and so for me, that was a massive eye-opener.
Well, I mean, there is also the ideology that institutions just train people to fit into institutions. They don't really train people to be free thinkers.
No, they don't. They don't, you know, because I remember even when we had, you know, that career day where you go and you talk about what you want to do. And they said, okay, right, let's try and see if we can find you something along this. And I said, I want to be an actor. What the hell?
Oh, but then you had a bug.
And they're like, acting? No, we don't really have, and they had no references for it. So they were absolutely useless. So they couldn't help me in that respect. Do you know what I mean? Because by then I knew I wanted to be an actor.
That was your path.
After doing that play, I thought, that's it. This is the path. And so I said, so what do I do? And they had and they said, well, we actually don't have anything, but maybe if you thought about, I'm like, I don't want to think about anything else. I want to do this. This is what I want to do. Yeah. You know, and again, it's like sometimes you're in these institutions and the teachers are not really helpful. And they're not saying, okay, this person is thinking a little bit outside the box.
And
so then let's do the same. No.
And try and provide them with some kind of guidance, which is what they're supposed to do.
You know, I mean, you know, what he could have said to me, you know, back in hindsight, is that, okay, well, I don't know much about this.
But I'll research it and get back to you.
But I can research it, you know, because I'm sure that there must be drama schools or, you know, or there could be courses or nothing. So they were not willing at that time to extend themselves.
Your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher was, and he wasn't even my teacher, but it was my my drama teacher, Mr. Davis. Because Mr. Davis was, he used to be a professional actor, and then he went into teaching. And
was this at school or?
This was at school,
right?
And he taught in my school, which was William Foster School in Tottenham. He taught Trevor Laird, the actor Trevor Laird. Okay. Victor Romero Evans, because they went to my school.
Were you all there at the same time?
No, well, they were considerably older than me. But
so he says.
Clear. That a young boy. Okay. No, because when I first started secondary school, Victor was in the 6th form.
Oh, right.
Victor was in the 6th form. Trevor Laird had just left.
Okay.
But he went to that school and he was taught by Mr. Davis. And Victor was taught by Mr. Davis as well. And do you remember the group Light of the World?
Of course.
Nat Augustine, he went to my school as well. So our school had this.
That was quite a nest of talent.
Yeah, a real nest of talent. You know, there was another guy named Weston Foster, who was in a group. Oh God, I can't remember the name, but they were quite a big soul group at the time. So there was a lot of creativity. Yeah. In Tottenham.
But in one breath you're saying, well, they weren't really pushing you in that direction or encouraging you, but then you have this teacher that's like saying, well, I see that you've got this and I think you should pursue it.
He saw something in me that I didn't see.
Yeah.
Because as I said, I was stuck on that kind of model of,
what it should be.
young Tottenham kid who should be, and I shouldn't be that.
Yeah.
But then when I then got into the acting, then I was like, wow, and it just kind of opened up this whole new world that I didn't know existed, because I had all these preconceived ideas about what I thought it was.
Yeah.
But then when you go in, you go, actually, it's got nothing to do with that at all.
Right.
And it's something that can actually expand who you are as a human being. So
Absolutely.
I was like, yeah. So it was a revelation.
As are most things, it's like if you go into it and take the right things out of it, most things will expand you as a human being. It's just whether you see it or not.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So...
what was your first professional job?
My first professional job was, I worked at a theatre company called Umoja Theatre Company, who were based in Camberwell.
Right.
That was 1984. And we did a production of Anansi the Spider-Man, which we toured around schools in South London. And I played Anansi the Spider-Man. I think I only got the part because I was so skinny. I could play a spider, you know what I mean?
As he sits there with those arms and legs dressed in black, I think maybe. Look, the one foot.
So that was my first job, and I just remember getting this job, and I was the happiest person in the world, because it was like, here I was being paid
to do something you love.
To do something I love.
What a privilege. People don't understand what an honor and privilege it is to be able to be paid to do something that you love and enjoy, rather than being paid for something that you feel you have to do to pay bills.
Exactly, yeah. And
which must be soul destroying.
And for me, it was the best thing in the world. We did I think it was a 6-week tour. So we did 2 schools a day. So
wow.
So it was hard.
That's grueling.
Yeah.
What age was that?
It was up to 11s. So it's between.
But what age were you?
Oh, I was 20.
All right. Okay.
No, 19, nearly 20. 19, nearly 20.
That's quite a grueling.
Yeah.
Schedule.
Yeah, so
so not only you're doing a matinee and an evening, it's like you're traveling to the next place as well.
Well, actually, we did a morning and an afternoon.
Morning, right? Okay.
Yeah, and so where we were traveling in one of those big vans, and then you had to kind of do up the set, set up the whole thing yourselves, then perform it, then strike it all and put it back in the van.
So that's 2 days, 2 schools a day?
2 schools a day.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was tough.
That's quite grueling.
It was tough, but for me, I never saw it as hard work. Because I thought, well, this will never be as hard as the building site, so this is easy. I was a laborer on a building site, so this is easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In terms of manual work.
Yeah, picking up that wooden set and putting it against the wall here is not like
digging trenches for foundations. It's no, this is not hard work. This is actually play, as far as I was concerned. You know what I mean? It was never, acting for me has never been hard, because it's not hard work if it's something that you love.
Yeah.
And if there are challenges within it, then you welcome those challenges and you kind of move towards them.
And as you said earlier, it's whether you see how those challenges are going to broaden you as an individual.
Yeah.
Make you better at what you do, make you a more rounded person even, You face that adversity, those challenges.
Yeah.
And that's the make or break of you, really.
Absolutely.
Well, I have to say, you were in one of my all-time favorite British crime series, Waking the Dead. Love it. From the very first ones. And I followed them all, went through the changes of casts.
Yeah.
The only 2 things I followed, that and Spooks.
Wow.
Love them.
That was a truly blessed time doing that show. And I have to say, and let's give a strong prayer up, it may be coming back.
Better. It's about time.
They're actually working to try and bring it back.
They've been showing reruns. And as I said, the casts have changed over the years. But yeah, I just absolutely love it.
Yeah. They're actually, because the woman who created it, her name is Barbara Machin. She's been speaking to various companies, and a lot of people are very, very interested in actually bringing back The Waking the Dead.
A new series? Right.
Yeah, new series. So it's like us like 10 years down the line.
Right, with the grey goatee now and the... Yeah, because that was on a major, that was BBC.
Yeah, that was one of their flagship shows.
Yeah.
It even won an Emmy.
Right.
In America, which was just incredible, we won the Emmy, I think it was 2007 for Best Drama Series, which was...
I can believe it.
Yeah, which was...
There have been a few drama series out that are on that caliber, I would say, but really and truly, I'm surprised it hasn't won more often, but maybe it's because the series stopped.
We were never nominated for a BAFTA, which everybody was completely surprised about, considering that we'd won an Emmy.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Love that show. I can't emphasize it enough. So tell her from Barrie Thomas, she needs to work on it, push it, and get it back out there because we want it.
What's actually interesting is that early this year, we did a radio version of it, and it was called The Unforgiven. And it was The Waking the Dead. It was the cold case unit 15 years before the series started. So it was like when we first worked together.
Right.
And we did this 5-part radio drama, which went out on BBC Radio, I think it was in March. And it was so successful that they've commissioned another one. So we're doing another one next year, January, another one, because they loved it so much. And at the same time, Barbara's still pushing for the series that we come back to.
So is she writing new ones, or how does it work?
Yeah. I mean, she's been writing it for years.
Right.
So she's got like loads and loads
of stories. So it's just ongoing. Yes.
But it's just that thing of like, finding the right company to produce it, whether it's the BBC or it's Sky or whoever. I mean, there's some interest in the BBC. There's some interest in a few companies who are associated with Sky Television. But again, it's about getting the right producer, getting the money. Yeah. Because if you're going to come back with Waking the Dead,
it's got to be caliber and a certain standard, because it started off a certain standard.
Yeah.
It wasn't low budget by any stretch of the imagination.
Exactly. And the last time we did Waking the Dead, that was 8 years ago. Technology, etc., DNA, forensics, criminal
have improved.
They've all improved, and they've all stepped up. So we know that the actual tools that we would be using would be on another level. So therefore, you got to chuck money at it. You know what I mean? So someone's going to come up with the money to actually make it. And that's where a producer's job becomes incredibly challenging, to convince people, listen, you need to spend this. Why?
That's a big budget.
And we'd have to do at least, say, because they were crime doubles.
Yeah, so it's like 2 hours, isn't it?
2 hours. So you're looking at 10 hours of television at least. Do you know what I mean? And that would take you to film 10 hours of TV. Nowadays, you could do that in about 6, maybe 7 months. Maybe, if you're lucky.
At a push.
Yeah. But then if the budget is tight, then they say, yeah, you can do that in 5. You're like, what? Yeah, 5. That's all we're giving you. So then you might have to do like what they call an 11-day fortnight, where you work Sunday to Friday, and then the following week, Monday to Friday, then Sunday to Friday. So it's like, so you have like 1 day off every 2 weeks. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And it'll be long hours.
That's grueling.
Yeah, long hours.
But how does that affect your performance? Because you're exhausted, the remembering of the lines.
It's not even us, it's the crew. It's the crew. They're the ones who take the brunt of it. Yeah. Whereas I could do a really big scene, and then they say, right, okay, we don't need you for the next 3 hours. Yeah. because we're going to film this, but the crew.
But the crew are there all the time. But they don't have changeovers? No?
Not necessarily, no.
Right.
No, it's the same crew.
So they're working the full thing every day, all day. Wow.
The crew go all the way through. All the way through. It's sometimes they'll say, all right, on this particular setup, we want 2 cameras. But then what they try and do now is they have like a main camera operator, and they'll get the DOP, who is also a camera operator. So he's operating one camera, he got next man, as opposed to getting in 2 camera operators. Sometimes they do that.
Right.
If you're working on like a big budget thing, then they will have 2 camera operators, A and B. I did a series a couple of years ago called Outlander, this American show, and they had two camera operators on that, and just the one DOP. So you just set the lights and they did all the other stuff. But normally they're trying to cut costs. Yeah. Is they get a DOP who can camera operate as well.
So that there's all these little
there's all these little things, man, that happen all the time.
To cut the budget.
Absolutely, yeah. Otherwise, it's like, I've got to pay for you, then I'm going to pay for you, then I'm going to pay for you. No. I'll get you to do 2 jobs, and then we'll work out a deal.
Yeah.
So you benefit.
You won't actually get the money for 2 jobs, but it's probably 1.5. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you get a bit more, and we'll save.
Yeah.
And then we'll have that guy there, as opposed to having 2 camera operators. Because Because even if you've got like A and B, even if B is sitting around all day, he's still gonna get paid. Because at some stage you're gonna use him. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, so what they try and do now is like, in order to save time, is they try and set up shots where you can use both cameras.
Right.
So it's like, so like I'm getting you on a close, and then so-and-so, he's getting you on a mid shot. And then that's done. Then we can move the camera that way, move it that way, move it that way.
And then just fix it all in the edit. Yeah.
As long as it doesn't compromise the lighting, because sometimes you can try and use 2 cameras and it can compromise the lighting.
Right.
So you have to be careful about that.
Tell me about your time as Othello.
Othello, oh my God. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It made me even give up smoking, should I say this on camera?
Well, that's good.
Yeah, because my biggest fear was losing my voice. Because when you read the role of Othello, you think to yourself, in what world?
Yeah.
Because it's like, on paper you think, but surely he'd go, well, bring so-and-so, let me quiz them in the same room and see who's telling the truth. But that never happens. So one of the things that I said to the director was, I said, Othello must be so naive. He has to be naive about love and about what love means to him, because he's been a soldier and a fighter his whole life. Yeah. Then he meets this woman, falls completely head over heels in love with her, and he gives his all to her and then some. So whatever she says, he believes, he trusts. At the same time, Iago, who is his best friend, he loves and trusts this man with his life. He's, this man has saved him on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So it's somebody so if Iago is telling Othello, look, I think, not quite sure, but I think your wife may be. The only reason that could be feasible is if Othello knows nothing about love and is not cynical about love, that has a purity about love. So it's like, if you love me, you love me. If you're not in love with me, then it's something else. But there's no in the middle.
Between, there's no gray areas.
And then also the other thing as well that we had to bear in mind was the speed of the production. There's almost like no thinking time for Othello. If you gave him that much space to think, he'd say, wait, stop. Bring her here now. But he never does that.
Yeah.
And even when she is with him, he's so consumed with rage and the grief and this sense of betrayal that he doesn't dare say it, because she might say, yes, I have been with Cassio.
Yeah. Now you have to know the story of Othello. Yeah. You have to know the story. And if you don't, go and read it.
Yeah. But it was a role where you have to tap into your sense of betrayal, your sense of love, your rage. Because once he starts, that's it, he doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Until the end when he realizes he's been tricked. It's not until the end that he realizes he's been tricked. That's why he kills himself. He kills himself not because of, some of it is shame.
Yeah, there is.
But it's that thing where he cannot live without her.
Yeah.
She's gone. So what is the point of me continuing? There is no point in me continuing. Because the love of my life, the person who I was living for is not here anymore. And I'm the one who killed her.
Yeah.
Thinking I did it for all the right reasons. To realize that I did it for all the wrong reasons. Because I was tricked.
If you don't know Othello, get to know Othello.
Yeah. But it was really, really challenging because you have to go to some really dark places
yeah.
in yourself every night. 8 shows a week. You have to find that thing in there, which is really hard.
And where did you perform it?
Up in Scotland, at the Royal Lyceum Theatre, which was great. You know what I mean? It was so hard, but it was so good. Because to actually get to play a character that is pure emotion. He's not a heady person. Othello is pure emotion, which is why he could be manipulated. Because he's pure.
Yeah.
If there was a shade or an ounce of cynicism about Othello and the world, you could not manipulate him.
Yeah, you just go.
Because he'd just do that. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. But he's not that. Because the minute Iago says the first thing, he's like, what? And then Iago knows that he's got him. And it's just so subtle. Everything that Iago does is subtle.
A subtle manipulation,
and he doesn't,
he knows who he's dealing with. Yeah,
and he knows that he doesn't have to overlayer it because Othello is so pure. That's why he can manipulate him like that.
Fantastic.
So we had to get that balance just right. Otherwise, the production would not have worked. Because I've seen many productions, and I'm thinking, I don't believe this dynamic.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have Othello as this pure character, he has to be pure in order for him to fall.
But I see the passion there even as you're expressing it.
And I did that back in 2004, so that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And you still feel it.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one of the roles that you would say you played is in your repertoire, but broadened your acting skills.
Absolutely. Because, as well as on an emotional and a spiritual and a psychological level, it's also on a physical level, because the demands that the role requires for you to hit certain scales and certain notes within your voice, you have to know your apparatus. Yeah. So on a technical level, you have to know that you can go right the way down there and then come all the way up there and then do all the scales and everything else in between like that. So on a technical level, you have to know your voice and be able to control it so that it's not just this screaming rage. It's like there's rage, but rage could have like 20 different levels.
Yeah. So it's measured as you're doing it, and at the right level.
So this rage is 3, that's 10, that's 11, that's 15, that's 4, that's 9, that's 8. So on that level, you have to almost you have to slightly kind of choreograph it. And then you've got to inhabit that with truth and with meaning.
Yeah.
But otherwise what could happen is that you go for this pure emotion, and then all the audience hears is just noise.
Yeah.
Because you just got this man that's going, rah!
And you don't even measure it. It's just that all the way through, which is like a monotone thing, but it's up there.
And you've got to find those different layers of paranoia, of betrayal, of hurt, of shame, There's all these different
This
things.
right here is a masterclass in acting. This right here is a masterclass in acting. You're teaching. You're teaching. Without even knowing it, you're teaching.
Yeah, but that's, but that's, for me, was the great sort of challenge about doing something like that.
Yeah.
So then when you come to then do a contemporary play, each play presents its own sets of challenges and each role, but certain roles,
Some more than others.
Yeah. And they inform you so that when you come to do a contemporary play, then you're able to handle that one better because you know what you need to do.
Do you have to have vocal coaching because when you're doing that number of shows, like a tour, you're using that voice.
Yeah.
It's more than likely sometimes if you're not using it correctly.
Yeah. You need a vocal coach. You need
Yeah.
a vocal coach. Because then they teach you how to use your voice properly. Otherwise, you'll lose it.
Yeah.
And I've been using my voice in theatre now for 33 years. So you
He
get
doesn't
to
look
know,
old enough. Ignore the background. He doesn't look old enough.
So you get to know how to use that. But then even the most experienced actors still have vocal coaches who will come in. I did a show last year at the Old Vic, a play called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is Dead, which is
Now there's a title.
that's a Tom Stoppard play,
Right.
with Daniel Radcliffe.
Okay.
He played one of the main parts in it, and we had a vocal coach who worked with us nearly every day for 6 weeks. So she would come in, we'd do like an hour's vocal work before we then start rehearsals.
Yeah.
Warm up the voice.
Warm it up. Because it's, as you say, it sounds corny, but it's an instrument.
It's an instrument. Absolutely. Before each show, you have to warm up your voice.
Yeah, you can't go straight in there shouting and then, then you got a sore throat.
Exactly. So you got to learn how to breathe, because your voice comes from down here.
Diaphragm.
It doesn't come from here.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from here. It comes from your diaphragm, from here. So then you got to know, especially when you're doing Shakespeare, because
Throw that voice.
Yeah.
And
and then there might be certain passages in Shakespeare where the thought is over 3 lines. So you've got to get that line out without actually taking a breath.
Yeah.
And it could be a long thought. Whereas if you pause it, you could break up the sense and the meaning.
And the meaning, it alters it, changes it.
Completely changes it. So you've got to, on that kind of technical level, you have to know exactly
How to control that voice, to get it all 3 lines out in one breath.
That's it. And that's where the vocal
That's
coach
almost
comes
like operatic training, isn't it? I
Exactly.
mean,
Yeah, that's it.
tell me about your DJing stints.
Now we're on to the real one. Forget the acting, mate. It's all about the DJ. It's all about the ones and twos,
what's
mate.
this thing, Wil Johnson, doing Othello tonight and then going on to a blues to do something? What's going on there?
DJing for me is the ultimate, because when you're acting, even if you're doing a one-man show, you are reliant on other people, on other things, on other elements. When you're DJing and you've got 2 decks and a mixer and you've got 3,000 people in front of you, whatever you do here affects them out there. It's a direct link. Do you know what I mean? And there's something about, connecting through music with people that is so hard to explain. It's just the ultimate buzz for me.
And particularly our generation, we communicate through music a lot.
Completely.
We were always out together. It wasn't about going out to do anything other than just hear the music and dance and hear what was new, the next import and the next, Studio One tune that's come over. It communicated through music, and we would be out together not even talking, but that connection is there.
Exactly. And we learned so much through, I remember growing up in the 70s and learning so much about black culture through the music, through the conscious music that was being produced at that time, and the groups that were coming out, from Bob Marley to, to Culture, the Wailers, Peter Tosh, Dillinger, all these cats that were around during the 70s and the 80s. And so for me, music has always been like, it's a way to escape, it's a way to find myself, it's a way to express myself. And then when I, started to learn how to mix and, to do a bit of scratching and all that kind of stuff, that's when you could really sort of express yourself in the sense of, I'm playing two tunes, they could be, soulful house or whatever. I can remix it on the spot.
Yeah.
So you got the basic tune that's going there, and then through the instruments on the mixer, I can reinvent that track live.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I can see there's as much passion there, if not more, dare I say. And then when you were talking about acting,
people have said to me, if you had a choice between being a professional DJ, like a Calvin Harris, being mega successful and touring the world and acting, would you choose? I said, I'd choose DJ, man.
Really?
Yeah. As much as I love acting, I prefer playing music more. And if I could really make a living out of playing music, I would do that.
You're doing pretty well with the acting.
The acting's going very well. I ain't gonna knock the acting.
You're doing pretty well.
But if I, was in a position where I could kind of put the acting aside for a few years and just focus on the music, I would just focus on the music. Yeah.
So what are your projects at the moment? What are you up to now?
At the moment, I've just finished working on an independent film, which is a really, really interesting project. It was called The Strangers. And it's a kind
of...
In
the UK?
In the UK. Okay. We filmed, my bits were filmed in Brixton. And
that's about as UK as you get.
Yeah. And in Bow.
Right.
And it's a project which this company, they're trying to pitch to Netflix to then produce as a TV series.
Okay.
So what they've shot is what they're now calling a feature pilot. So basically you shoot a 2-hour film, which then you pitch to Netflix. And if they like it, then they will throw money behind actually.
And you could develop it further.
Develop this as a series, but the introduction, you've already got it.
Right.
I've already given you the actual package. So the part I played in it was, it's post-apocalyptic World War III. So this country now is being run by corporations. And I am the CEO of one of those major corporations. He is the guy with ultimate power.
Okay.
To the point where he doesn't have to wear it because he has it. He is it. Yeah. He is power.
Yeah.
And when you have a character that is power, it's almost like you're God. In that world, he is like the God of that world.
Yeah.
But he's a very charming, very affable, very nice human being. But this is the man who can, smoke you in a millisecond.
Wow.
If he if he sort of woke up and thought, you're gone, then you're gone. So he has that kind of power. So it was very interesting because I never played a character like that, where, and you kind of think, is it an obvious choice to sort of playing sort of charming? But then again, you do, because when you're that powerful, the only thing you can be is nice.
Yeah.
You don't have to be horrible.
Yeah, because you're in control of everything.
Because you're in control of everything that's around you.
Yeah.
Everybody that is around you bows to who you are.
No need to be nasty.
So therefore you can be, you can just take your time. When you have that kind of power, I was just thinking to myself, when I got the role, I was thinking, what is it like to be a person who has everything, but also controls everything? Because you could have everything, meaning you've got £1 billion in the bank, so meaning I can almost buy anything that I like. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're the most powerful cat in the room.
Right.
You know, but then it's a bit like you've got like a like a Trump. He's a powerful man. No matter what we may think of him or his politics, he has power.
Absolutely.
Real power. And this character has that kind of power. So that was really interesting, actually playing that kind of character, and it was a joy.
So looking forward and hoping for that one to be.
Yeah. That was such a nice project to actually get involved in. At the moment, it's that phase now where you're going for loads and loads of auditions.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to make that leap over to America now. So I'm going up for loads of American stuff, and you're sort of getting close to this and close to that and close to that. But then when you move into that next arena, then you're up against cats that have done big movies, big TV series in America. And 9 times out of 10, the people producing those shows will go to what they know. Yeah. And they say, but so-and-so's done so-and-so, so we're going to choose him as opposed to choosing him. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of in that middle ground at the moment where you kind of a little bit frustrating, because I've done my first.
I can actually do this, but I'm not being given the opportunity because probably the name isn't big enough, or you haven't seen anything major in America. But
they've seen me in America because fortunately I did a series which was out last year called Outlander, and that was my first American role in a major American TV series. So that was great to do that, and be a kind of a semi-regular character. But getting one gig, it's almost like they can say, but that's a bit of a fluke, isn't it? You need to get the number 2. Yeah. And they think, okay, he's a bit and then once you get the third
and then start getting these gigs a habit.
Then they go, all right, okay, he's here to stay.
He's real. He's the real deal.
He's the real deal. Yeah. So it's about trying to make that leap. Onto the next one.
It will come in time. It will come in time.
Yeah.
Patience. Perseverance. As they say, there's no such thing as good luck. Good luck is when, let's see, I want to get this quote right. Good luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And it's true. There's no such thing as good luck. It's like you throw your hat in the ring, and you've done the work beforehand so that if you are called, you're ready.
There you go. That's it.
You're not going and fluking. Yeah. With your busy schedule, what does Wil Johnson do to look after himself and keep his equilibrium?
Cycling.
I was very impressed today, I have to say.
Cycling and boxing.
Right.
And watching movies.
Yeah.
I'm a real movie fan.
So is that a daily thing? You do cycle, do some boxing training, or as just as often as you can?
Every day. Okay. I cycle every day. I try and do at least 20 miles a day, cycling. Boxing.
You see, these spider legs are strong.
Yeah.
Spider legs are strong.
These are very strong. You know what I mean? Boxing, when I'm able to, I train about 3-4 times a week.
Okay.
Yeah. Train about 3-4 times a week. I've been doing it since over 20 years now.
All right.
So I can handle myself, you know what I mean? Give it some of that.
Good.
I'm south.
Well, everybody has to have their therapy, whatever it is, whether it's running, training, whatever, meditation, a massage. Everybody has to have their thing.
That's my thing. The cycling and boxing. And also going for nice bike rides in the country with my wife, which is actually, and then we'll stop at a nice little country pub and have a nice beer.
Will, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You see, you too can do it. You too can do it. Inspiration right here. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And if anything in the show resonates with you, please leave us a message. Okay? Take care. See you next time. Bye. Good.